Chapter 8, Tucker's Life Savings. Chester Cricket was having a dream. In his dream, he was sitting on top of his stump back in Connecticut, eating a leaf from the willow tree. He would bite off a piece of leaf, chew it up, and swallow it. But for some reason, it didn't taste as good as usual. There was something dry and papery about it, and it had a bitter flavor. Still, Chester kept eating, hoping that it would begin to taste better. A storm came up in his dream. The wind blew clouds of dust across the meadow. They swirled around his stump, and Chester began to sneeze because the dust got into his nose. But he still held on to the leaf, and then he sneezed such a big sneeze that it woke him up. Chester looked around him. He had been walking in his sleep, and he was sitting on the edge of the cash register. The storm had been a gust of air that blew into the newsstand when the shuttle pulled up to the station. He was still choking from the dirt that flew around him. Chester looked down at his front 2 legs, half expecting to find the willow leaf, but it was no leaf he was holding. It was a $2 bill, and he had already eaten half of it. Chester dropped the bill and leaped over to the cricket cage where Tucker Mouse was sleeping peacefully. Chester shook the silver bell furiously. It rang like a fire alarm. Tucker jumped out from under his blanket of dollar bills and ran around the cage shouting, "Help! Fire! Murder! Police!" Then he realized where he was and sat down, panting. "What is the matter with you, Chester?" he said. "I could have died from fright." "I just ate half of a $2 bill," said Chester. Tucker stared at him in disbelief. "You did what?" he asked. "Yes," said Chester. "Look." He fetched the ruined $2 bill from his cash register. "I dreamed it was a leaf, and I ate it." Oh, moaned Tucker Mouse. "Not a $1 bill? Not even a $1 bill and 50-cent piece? $2 you had to eat? And from the Bellinis, too? People who hardly make $2 in 2 days? What am I going to do?" asked Chester. "Pack your bags and go to California," said Tucker. Chester shook his head. "I can't," he said. "They've been so good to me, I can't just run away." Tucker Mouse shrugged his shoulders. "Then stay and take the rap," he said. He crept out of his cage and examined the remains of the money. "There's still half of it left. Maybe we could put Scotch tape along the edge and pass it off as a $1 bill." There he is, ringing the bell furiously to tell him what he did. "No one would believe it," said Chester. He sat down, still forlornly holding the bill. Oh dear, and things were going along so nicely. Tucker Mouse put his bedclothes back in the cash register drawer and came to sit beside Chester. "Buck up," he said. "We could still figure out something, maybe." They both concentrated for a minute. Then Tucker clapped his paws and squeaked, "I got it. Eat the rest of it, and they'll never know what happened." "They'd accuse each other of losing it," said Chester. "I don't want to make any more bad feelings between them. I don't want—" "Oh, you're so honorable," said Tucker. "It's disgusting. Besides, it tastes bad," added Chester. "Then how about this?" Tucker had another idea. "We frame the janitor who cleans the station. I'll take the evidence over and plant it in the water closet. He whipped me with the mop last week. I would be glad to see him go to jail for a few days." No, said Chester. "We can't get somebody else in trouble." "Then a stranger," said Tucker. "We tip over the Kleenex, break the glass in the alarm clock, throw around the small change on the floor. They'll think a thief came in at night. You could even put a bandage on and make out like a hero. I could see it all." "No," Chester interrupted him. "The damage we'd do would cost even more than the $2. Tucker had one more idea. He was going to volunteer to go over to swipe $2 from the lunch counter. But before he could suggest that, the top of the stand had suddenly lifted off. They had forgotten what time it was. Mama Bellini, who was on duty in the morning, stood towering, frowning down on them. Tucker let out a squeak of fear and jumped to the floor. "Catch that mouse!" shouted Mama. She picked up a Fortune magazine, very big and heavy, and heaved it after Tucker. It hit him on the left hind leg just as he vanished into the drain pipe. Chester Cricket sat frozen to the spot. He was caught red-handed holding the chewed-up $2 in his front legs. Muttering with rage, Mama Bellini picked up by his antenna, tossed him into the cricket cage, and locked the gate behind him. When she had put the newsstand in order, she pulled out her knitting and began to work furiously. But she was so angry she just kept dropping stitches, and that made her angrier still. Chester crouched in a far corner of the cage. Things had been going so well between Mama and him, but that was all ruined now. He half expected that she would pick him up, cage and all, and throw him right into the shuttle tracks. At 8:30, Mario and Papa arrived. Mario wanted to go to Coney Island for a swim today, but before he could even say good morning, Mama Bellini stretched out her hand and pointed sternly at Chester. There he was with the evidence beside him. A three-cornered conversation began. Mama denounced Chester as a money eater and said further that she suspected him of inviting mice and other unsavory characters into the newsstand at night. Papa said he didn't think Chester had eaten the $2 on purpose, and what difference did it make if a mouse or two came in? Mama said he had to go. Papa said he could stay, but he'd have to be kept in the cage, and Mario knew that Chester, like all people who are used to freedom, would rather die than live in his life behind the bars. Finally, it was decided that once the cricket was Mario's pet, the boy would have to replace the money, and when he had, Chester could come out again. Until then, in the cage. By working part-time delivering groceries when he wasn't taking care of the newsstand, Mario thought he could earn enough in a couple of weeks to get Chester out of jail. Of course, that would mean no swimming at Coney Island, and no movies, and no nothing. But it was worth it. He fed the cricket his breakfast, leftover asparagus tips, and a piece of cabbage leaf. Chester had particularly no appetite after what had happened. Then when the cricket was finished, Mario said goodbye and told him not to worry, and went off to the grocery store to see about his job.